it's by time that we make that choice, that we look inside ourselves and see that it's time for a little bit of personal sacrifice. They're putting it all on the line in order to get you that message. It's a very strong thing. We all owe them a major debt of gratitude. But more importantly, I'd like to see that as an inspiration for each and every one of us. They know that they have a right. They know that the federal government, more importantly, doesn't have the authority. They try to claim authority under the Commerce Clause, but we all know that the transmission barely even reaches the entire city of Austin, let alone cross state lines. So rather than lay down, once again, like so many people are doing across the country, we've decided to take a stand, and it's a beautiful thing. But again, people are putting their lives at risk. Another way to take a stand, and this one's a little more questionable, a little more difficult, but it's going to take some time, and I'll tell you there's strength in unity, there's strength in numbers, and there's strength in truth. But one of the most coercive aspects of our federal government is the income tax. It's a tough one. I'm sure many of you are well aware that the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified. You can check out a book, it's called The Law That Never Was, by a gentleman by the name of Benson, I believe. The law that never was never properly ratified. Therefore, it's repugnant to the United States Constitution. Therefore, it's null and void. So here's the problem. I could get up here and say, you should consider not paying your income taxes. but then there's the whole question of the strong arm of the federal government, which is a little bit stronger than my personal biceps here. It's a lot stronger, actually. But again, there's strength in numbers. One of the things that came out of Continental Congress 2009, I was a delegate, and I'm proud to have represented the great state of Texas. We came up with something called the Articles of Freedom. It's a 70-plus page document that basically outlines in detail the abuses and the usurpations of power by the federal government. And along with that, what it did, it came with a declaration. It came with a declaration that we the people, we are sovereign. And what we're doing is asking everybody in the country to sign on to this pledge. And basically what the pledge says is that whenever a goodly amount of Americans sign on and agree with our cause, we will withhold our funding from the federal government. So I know it sounds tough as an individual, but if we stand together as a movement and decide once we reach a certain point of critical mass that we can do this together, I think it'll definitely have a strong impact. Decision to make, but when you consider the murder, the immoral murdering that's going on, the slaughtering of millions of people in the Middle East right now, and when you consider the fact that we're basically paying for our own enslavement, I think the decision becomes a little bit easier. And again, if you're standing with 10 million other Americans, it becomes even easier than that. But the reason why it's not an easy decision to make right now, I'm sure there's nobody in this room that enjoys paying their income taxes and having their labor stolen from them at the point of a gun, which is what it really is because of the coercion of the government. It's because the government threatens us. The government terrorizes us into compelling, and we don't want to. So to me, it boils down to a question of competing coercion. You have the coercive state, and you have we the people. Before, when our founding fathers fought the revolution, it was muskets and cannons versus muskets and cannons. Whereas now, we have assault rifles and the occasional grenade launcher. Maybe there's a militia that has a Navy or a couple planes. But the establishment, they have microwave weapons, they have predator drones, they have electromagnetic pulses, they have tasers. It was actually Mr. Griffin that pointed this out last time he was in Austin. When the question was brought up about, where is this all heading? He said they could park a van outside of this building right now, press a button, and emanate a microwave that would boil the liquid that's beneath your first layer of skin. All of us would instantly be incapacitated. So unfortunately, when it comes to the question of competing coercion, we are strongly outnumbered, and they have a much stronger coercive arm than we do. But there's hope. There is answers. Not only would I recommend that everybody get prepared and purchase a firearm and learn how to defend yourself, your property, and your family, most importantly. But I would also recommend that we the people, in order to better combat the federal government and the coercive arm of the state, that we start to get the government on our side as well. That we start to turn the tide and get the states on our side. So that way, whenever the competing coercion comes about, now it's not just John Bush and his ragtag militia Austin activists standing against the federal government. It's not just us saying no to the FCC that's coming to kick the door down, but we now have the state government on our side. And this is already beginning to happen at a very increasing rate all across the country. The tide is beginning to turn. The momentum is beginning to shift away from centralized authority and back towards decentralization. It's a beautiful thing. We see Montana and Tennessee passing the Firearms Freedom Act. That's great. Basically states that firearms manufactured entirely within that state are exempt from federal regulation. Who would have thought? I'm here to tell you, Representative Leo Berman introduced it in the state of Texas, and it's my intention, with y'all's help, to get that passed in 2011. So here's how the bills work. It basically says if the federal government comes to town and tries to use their coercive arm against you, then they're going to have the state itself defend the individual, defend that state citizen. So what are we talking? Government protecting our rights. So there's a whole multitude of, there's a FCC nullification, which I actually just drew up for Representative Charles Key in Oklahoma that's going to get introduced. Again, we intend to do it in the state of Texas as well in 2011. There's healthcare nullification that's starting to come about. So ladies and gentlemen, the tide is definitely turning. It's a very beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And I beg each and every one of you to get involved this next legislative session. Last session, we had some pretty big victories. We had no idea what we're doing. We were basically just making it up as we go. But we managed to have some victories. So I imagine the establishment's going to be up against a pretty big brick wall come 2011. We're going to need your help with that. But not only do we need to get the state legislatures and the governor on our side and the coercive arm of our state to protect us from the intrusive federal government, but we also have Sheriff Richard Mack and the Sheriff Project, all the way down to decentralized county level. It's a beautiful thing. I heard everybody. I'm still waiting for Sheriff Hamilton's office to give me a call back. Fortunately, it's never easy to get in touch with your elected representatives, but I just recommend consistency. Maybe everybody in here on Monday could call too. That would help. Just bug the guys, tell them that, they're our elected representatives. They work for us. But yeah, that's basically decentralization all the way down to the county level. And we all know that the sheriff is the constitutional authority in the county, so he has the ability to say, no, the FCC's not walking down here to Travis County. You can get the heck out. Show me your authority, and I'll let you on in. But without it, me and my deputies here, and if we need be, we can call up the militia to defend ourselves. We're not going to let you in, so you can see your way back to D.C. That's what's going to need to happen. That's right. It's a beautiful thing. It's a question of competing coercion. It's going to be very difficult for us to do it on our own. I honestly don't think we can. So the time is now to push this nullification trend, this trend back towards decentralization, the 10th Amendment, the Sheriff Project. These are all beautiful things, and I think we should strongly work towards them. And we are, as Texans for Accountable Government, and I'd love everybody to join us in that battle. Another thing that we need to do moving forward is, rather than being reactionary as libertarians and as freedom fighters, rather than simply pushing back on the coercive state, rather than pushing back on all of their intrusion, we need to be working together, building parallel institutions, offering the people an alternative that's based on not coercion like the state, not a monopoly on coercion over a certain geographic area where you have to do what the state says regardless of what you believe. No choice for you, unfortunately, but a system based on mutually beneficial voluntary associations. Some would call it anarchism, but I don't like to use the A word because it has such a bad rap. But ladies and gentlemen, it's obvious. Obviously, we're going to have more harmony and a better society if it's based on consent, right? That's how our system was supposed to be based on, but unfortunately it's not. So moving forward, I strongly recommend that we, the people, especially the patriot community, we come together and start to offer the people an alternative. For example, when it comes to the question of money, which Griffin will be speaking about, the Federal Reserve, the creature from Jekyll Island. We all know that the Federal Reserve is a total farce, and they're devaluing our currency just about every single day. Where it used to only take one bread earner to have sustenance for a family. Now 2 people are struggling to make ends meet. It's because they're stealing the value of our currency away.